How do you think Biden will fulfil his promises?
Well, he's already begun. I mean, as we know, by about 5:15 p.m. this afternoon, that's only 5 hours and 15 minutes after he's sworn in, we expect President Biden to issue 17 executive orders. So that's straight to business. I mean, this is not a time for the traditional celebrations and the inauguration ball, not with the pandemic, not with the deep divisions, not with the threats of domestic terrorism. And these executive orders are going to reverse what's called the Muslim travel ban, ban on travel from certain Muslim countries here into the US. It's going to end construction of former President Trump's infamous Mexican border wall. It's going to put America back in to the Paris Accord, and America is also going to rejoin the World Health Organization. Now, moving even more forward, the Democrats do have the balance of power in the Senate, but nonetheless, it's an evenly split Senate at 50-50. So both the Republican leader in the Senate and the Democrat leader in the Senate are still in negotiations about power sharing, which is traditionally what is done. Now, the vice president will have the deciding vote in any tie, but there's still power sharing negotiations to go on. And indeed, just this morning, after the inauguration on Fox News here in America, we heard Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, one of former President Trump's staunchest and most loyal allies, saying he's actually looking forward to working with President Biden. He said that he himself, as a powerful senator, doesn't see himself opposing any of President Biden's cabinet nominees. And in fact, he says, I intend to give a waiver to the nominee of Secretary of Defense, General Lloyd Austin, that is required because he's only left the military 4 or 5 years ago. And let's not forget, President Biden was in Congress for something like 47 years. Then he was vice president for 8 years. He knows how to work Congress and the Capitol. So I suspect that we're going to see President Biden's agenda moving forward at a pretty brisk clip.
What about the 74 million Republicans who voted for Trump, Michael? We've spoken about this a few times on the show today, but in your eyes, in your view, what is the future? Where to now for the GOP?
Well, that's a great question, Peter, because even the GOP, the Republican Party, doesn't know what its future is. The Republican Party knows that it is currently in an existential crisis. And right now, no one, including the former President Trump, can determine what Trump's future influence on the party is going to be. But put it this way, the most senior Republican in Congress, currently the majority leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, soon to be the minority leader, he told the Senate that President Trump fed the mob and the people of America lies. He said that former President Trump, or then President Trump, provoked the mob. And look, there's numerous reports here in the media that says many in the Republican Party, including Mitch McConnell, would very much like to see the back of former President Trump. And perhaps if the impeachment trial goes ahead as planned and the former president's found guilty, he could be denied ever holding future office. One other problem that the party may face, President Trump, not knowing how to let go, has not been quiet about his rumblings that he may create his own political party, the Patriot Party. Now, if that happens, that's simply going to split the conservative vote and will almost certainly guarantee Democratic control for almost a generation.
There were a lot of achievements in the Trump presidency, it needs to be said. You know, the tax cuts, the business tax cuts led to a roaring economy before the pandemic came along. Post-pandemic, a bit of a different story. When it comes to the Middle East, there are achievements in the Middle East that made some progress towards peace, and a few other things as well. But when it comes to Middle East, I mean, it's the thorn in the side for a lot of leaders because it's very difficult to get anything done. But in terms of relations under Biden, how do you see that going?
Well, obviously the signature Middle East foreign policy success, perhaps one of the only foreign policy successes for the Trump administration, was what we call the Abraham Accord, where 4 Sunni Arab states have formally recognised Israel and normalised relations. Now, we heard yesterday President Biden's nominee for Secretary of State at his nomination hearing before the Senate say that he hopes to continue the momentum built up by the Abraham Accord. However, you have to understand several things. One is, what was the price of the Abraham Accords? You know, to get Morocco to sign on, America gave away the sovereignty of the West Saharan people and tribes and disenfranchised them to gain Morocco's siding. Bahrain signed on because the Trump administration agreed to declare a small militant group within Bahrain a terrorist organisation. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, signed on because it got the latest generation F-35 fighters. So, and in return, Israel was asked to do nothing and to give nothing. There was no curb asked of Tel Aviv on its territorial expansionism, on increasing settlements, on even bringing or preparing to sit down with Palestinians back at the negotiating table. So the Abraham Accord, I think, is a great step in a new direction. I think that momentum should be followed, and the Biden administration has indicated that's precisely what it's going to do. But we need to adjust for the free-for-all and the arms sale, the giveaway that led to that accord.